Hey everybody, welcome to another live episode of the Management Defect Think Take on LinkedIn Live. Today, or last week, let's start with amazing, super fun topic, leadership as a team sport. Definitely something I'll be talking about again in the near future. I think I just hit the tip of the iceberg with that one, and I'm chopping it up because there was a whole bunch of little nuggets that I'm going to share over the next week that I thought that were really awesome, and some insights into the way we work and kind of the benefits of considering how you work as a leader, the success in everything you do as being doing it as part of the team and the team building you up and providing that success. This week, in honor of Top Gun getting more sales at the box office than Avatar, we're feeling the need for speed. We're going to the danger zone with the need for speed, but instead we're thinking about going slow to go fast and what that means. And it's a little bit counterintuitive. We'll get into it. We'll talk about what's a management defect and understanding how you can solve those by applying our 9-step management defect framework. With that being said, let's get right into it. I like when I pick a topic to do a little research, to find some quotes, to see what other people have spoken about on the topic. And it's funny, this one goes way back in history. And when I saw the quote, I thought, this is the perfect example of going slow to go fast. And that was a quote by Honest Abe Lincoln from hundreds of years ago. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend 4 sharpening the axe. If you break that down or let that hang in the air for a second, not everything is about the speed at which you can go. Sometimes you need to take a little pause, spend time doing some real planning, spend time preparing yourself to succeed for you to eventually get there even faster had you just jumped right ahead. And over the last 15 years, I've been on some monster projects, and some of them have said, let's just go fast, and ignoring that go slow part, and has cost 8-9 figures in lost productivity, canceled projects, and failed projects. But I've also seen, on the other hand, when you do have strong leadership who has that courage of vision to take a pause, come up with the right strategy, that they'll execute something that everybody thought could never get done in, well, I was going to say flawless way, but we know that there's no such thing as a project that it gets delivered without a couple of bumps, but has delivered a project successfully and overcome those odds and delivered it faster had they just dove right in. Thanks to Abe Lincoln, that's a great quote. I think right now, especially, I've spoken about it previously, where it's a badge of honor right now for a lot of managers to say, I've got 6, 8, 10 hours of meetings. I'm so busy, and not having that intention, and instead looking at that badge of honor being, I've got 6, 8, 10 hours of meetings supporting my team and getting what needs to be done so that they can go faster. And that's, in Agile, that's part of servant leadership, where your job is to remove those blockers and to really see the forest from the trees in your planning to allow your team to fail quickly, pivot quickly, and deliver faster to market and deliver more value. And even though they use the word sprints, sometimes there's a sprint where you have to slow down and handle technical debt. Sometimes there's a sprint where you have to slow down and come up with a new approach. Those are a few things to think about as we're thinking about slow, going slow. This is not a bad word if it's equipped with an approach that's going to make you in the end go faster. There was another quote when I was looking this up, and that also has to do with, slow being a bad word in corporate culture, and that's many people push back against slow because it just stands in such a stark contrast to our fast-paced, interrupt-driven culture and the lexicon of what we do. As I said, every boss is, I'm busy, I'm busy. How are you doing? I'm busy. That for so many years, that became a staple of, at least for me, how are you? Oh, I'm busy. That was just immediately, of course, everybody's busy, but that shouldn't be the focus of the work, and that only promotes the hustle culture. And we've seen all the mental health and all the burnout from so many people. Last week we talked about kind of quiet quitting, people who have said, no, I've had enough and I will just focus on the time that I'm spending and the work there. Talking about busy and busy and busy, really not healthy and is not going to build that team cohesion. And I'll give a tip at the end of this as to 2 words that I actually found that change that dynamic. Stay tuned to the end for that. Really, if you think about it, leaders right now are so focused on getting that day going to market that they over-optimize the process and they're looking for shortcuts everywhere. And while intuitively that makes sense, of course, we want to deliver value, we want to deliver customer value. Going slow makes sure that we're delivering the right value. That especially right now, as we're going into a recession, budgets are being slashed everywhere. A good leader and a good project manager is going to take the time and say, well, if we're going to spend $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million on an initiative, let's not dive right in right now foolhardy. Let's make sure that the approach is right. One of the things a lot of big organizations, especially in fintech, where that's where I've been spending a lot of time of my career. When you say you want to do an initiative, they give you a seed fund. So they give you a little bit of money to go in and say, we're going to write some requirements. We're going to figure out the design. We're going to figure out the approach and the overall cost to do this before we just run in and say, nope, this has to be done. And I've been on a number of projects over a number of years where the projects, we've delivered that estimate and they've said, no, that's not the right value. And had those leaders been foolhardy enough to have jumped right in, they would have spent 10 times the budget of the seed to deliver on something that wouldn't have delivered the right value, wouldn't have gotten you where you needed to go. Really, as leaders, it's your job to take a pause and gauge the team. Is this the right approach? One of the things actually that I had seen online, and apologize, I don't remember exactly where I was scrolling through TikTok late one night, and somebody had mentioned, well, if you're getting 3 estimates if you're getting 3 solutions to a problem that you're bringing to leadership, sometimes you're missing the right question, and that's who's provided them. Were there more options? And what was the lens that those people had that didn't include them? When you are going to leadership, everything should be done with intention and obviously with the interest of the client or your team to deliver the best value. I've seen over the course of my tenure in a lot of big organizations, certain times you'll have a VP that has a few $1 million to spend, and their decision is, well, I'm not going to go with what I know is the right decision to do something that's maybe not as sexy, maybe handle technical debt, maybe help resolve a serious problem for the bank or for an organization, but not something that in the long term is going to increase their bonus at the end of the year. Their lens of what they've chosen has been selfish, and in doing so has shut down a department, shut down a team, lost knowledge. And you get a lot of employee apathy when that happens, when these decisions come from up high, especially at the fast pace that they're getting made. There's huge disconnects in the communication chain. If you have the CIO saying, hey, we need to spend less money, let's make some decisions to stop a few of these projects, that doesn't get fed down the chain in a way that it identifies, hey, we're not just stopping what we're doing, but we're strategically pivoting, and here's why. And here's why we think the benefits are. And if leaders would take that moment to provide that communication and bring people along, they would gain that buy-in from their team, who are, at the end of the day, the people that are working so hard to deliver on these visions, and not understanding the vision and not even being at the table or even having that communicated to you is really what drives apathy. And really, why would I care whether we go fast or slow if I'm not involved or somebody doesn't care to even discuss it with me? So if you're a leader, think about that the next time you have a canceled project. Like, what's the messaging that's going out? Why is that happening? There could be a completely legitimate reason and or a strategic reason for that to happen. But think about every single person on it. I work in large organizations, and sometimes we're running projects of 100 to 300 people. And when that's happening and all of a sudden it's coming to a grinding halt, what's the messaging? Think about that. Just a little gut check for leaders out there who control the budgets, and think about it with intention. How will you communicate that moving forward the next time that happens? Another piece I wanted to talk about was technical debt, because really for me, that is something where, especially in large organizations, and now I feel like I'm saying that over and over again, maybe it's not just in large organizations, but really there's an infrastructure of about 30 plus years of systems that have been built and slowly upgraded and patched together and documentation lost. And now everybody wants to do business transformations. And if I think about my career the last 15 years, I would say 90% of the projects that I'm on are delivering transformations to the business, doing things in less steps, optimizing their processes, moving things from people scanning documents and manually entering them on paper to having automated workflows. All these kinds of transformations. All right. Technical debt becomes an important part of understanding that journey. And when executives hear, oh, I have to spend 20, 30% of my budget to do the right thing, to refactor code or to change my processes of these old systems, they think, oh, well, we're not getting value because you're going to change something that's going to go away eventually. But again, this is going slow to go fast. You need to look at the forest from the trees. How is this going to help you? Maybe if you're looking at quarter by quarter, the spend and the benefit, you're not going to see the immediate benefit of decommissioning some of these monster systems or moving them all to the cloud, or spending the time to actually document what you have, because it doesn't exist. And it is very difficult to process engineer these cobbled together systems over 30 years. There's no knowledge retention, especially because if you have been in a department for that long, you've probably moved between lots of different groups and have moved upwards. Your knowledge now is to help guide teams on how to move, and not on actually providing that knowledge at that lower level. Understanding that technical debt is an important piece to the entire roadmap, and looking 1 year, 2 years, 5 years out, going, it may be costing us an ongoing cost a lot of money, and the small changes that we're making may not provide us the benefit today, but 3 years from now, it could drop all of the operating costs by a significant amount. I had one of the managers or one of the VPs that I've been working with, he said something to me that's really stuck with me, and that was, we're watching this cycle of constantly upgrading the same systems and tooling it and tweaking it to make it work a little bit more, but that usually means adding more steps to it, when people should be looking at, is this even the right thing to do? Is there a complete other direction we could go that would give us benefits that would 10x our returns, but just you have to look at the timeline and not be looking so narrow-minded on 1 quarter or 1 year to deliver it. We're going to pivot over. We're actually going to pull back the leadership in a team sport concept from last week, And shout out to the GOAT, number 99, the best leader on the ice in any team sport, Wayne Gretzky. I teach this to my kids. I coach hockey. This is something that we're always talking about, and that's a good hockey player will play where the puck is, but a great hockey player will play where the puck is going to be. And this, if you look at it from leadership as well, there's so many changes going on in organizations right now. Particularly, I know there's a lot of lens on how can we automate, how can we put these on autopilot, how can we use AI tools to help us with what we're doing. As a leader, you should be looking to these new innovations to try and understand how can this help us, how can we lower the cost of our fulfillment, and how can we add more value to clients by looking at these new types of tools and having that different lens, not just looking straight down on one segment. When I think about, in my experience, some of the wins and losses, thinking about going slower, going fast. One of them, we had on a program, we had 24 hours of development. We had 2 teams running in 2 different shifts. And because of the volume of people working on the code, the lean hours in between the 2 shifts, we had another core team working to stabilize the environments around the clock. And every time we put in a code every single day, because you had 100 people checking in code at the same time, invariably there's not enough eyes to do a thorough enough check, and the environments would crash, and then the team would have to spend the next 3 or 4 hours to get it up for the next set of developers, and as soon as they would check their code in, the exact same thing would happen. And we did this over and over and over, expecting a different result, until finally we got management to pause on adding any code and just stopping and stabilizing the environment and coming up with a better environment plan, so that we had multiple features being worked on in different releases in different branches and splitting this all out. We ended up having to take 2 to 4 weeks to slow things down, but ultimately it got us to a point where we could actually have a stable code and have a stable release. That one, there was definitely some tough days, and that can't be great for the mental health of your team. It's terrible for employee retention, and how can you want to go into work every day knowing that they're setting you up to fail? And as a leader, that's something you need to think about. How are you empowering your team to succeed? And is it worth you speaking up to identify a place where we need to slow down to invariably speed back up and get it delivered faster? Another situation, and this one was actually a great win that I had, we did a release of a platform where we were automating the accounts open project. It was a large business transformation that we were doing. And the first release, there was non-functional requirements. So testing the scenarios for the environments for where it breaks, and making sure that we had the right codes, making sure that there was the right workflow for anything that could be done so the team could properly triage it. The first go around, we had 30 scenarios. It took us a month to do. And in the second release, we knew we had 100 of those same scenarios to do, but we only had that same 30 days. You're asking us to do 3 times the amount of work, same amount of resources, same amount of time. What we did is, instead of spending that 1 month on the execution to do all 90, we said we need to go a little bit slower. So what we did is we brought in resources, and we spent almost a month doing dry runs to understand what is every single scenario we're going to tamper that environment, every single one, and how are we going to do that, and let's test it and validate that it's going to work. And the result was, instead of getting all 90, 100 scenarios done in a month, we actually got them done in 3 weeks when it came time to the actual execution. And so that was a huge success story, because really it's something I had to fight. I'd had to speak up and really show them the data, which is also another key. Always have the data to back it up to get leadership buy-in, but it's something that I saw coming. I could see the forest in the trees, I could see the problem, and it was me looking out for my team instead of saying, work around the clock to get this done. How about we remove all the impediments to the work and deliver it? Another example of a really successful one was I was working in wealth management a number of years ago, and there was 5 or 6 different regulatory projects, all touching the same systems at the same delivery dates. Sometimes they were even changing the same fields. And it started out with 5 or 6 different PMs, each advocating, no, we should be go in, ours is the most important. And I could see right off the bat that if one of us won, everybody else lost. And the only way to get around this was to slow down, say, let's actually merge all the requirements into a release train, and let's put them in sequence based on the delivery dates. So if you're touching the same, if you were touching the same screen to capture new information, if you were touching the same field, those would be done all at once so that we wouldn't have to rekey anything. We ended up saving a lot of time because we didn't have multiple releases. We weren't coding multiple times. The testing we saved because we were only having to test those same flows once instead of multiple times. And ultimately, every single one hit their deadlines. And sometimes it takes taking that step back to really move yourself forward in a successful and intentional way. And you have to feel empowered to raise your voice and do it. At the time, I was young. I had just been maybe 5 years into project management. I was brand new to a department. And all I did was say, hey, I've done this somewhere else, and I know that this is the right way to do it. And took a half an hour out of my time to write a proposal, brought it to my PMO heads and said, I think I can solve this problem, and here's what it is. I took the initiative on myself because I saw the issue coming. And by doing that, it actually boosted me into a portfolio manager, program manager role early in my career, much earlier than probably I would have been had I not raised my voice to take on that. That's another thing to help recession-proof your career. You think about the takeaway from that, it was such a win, is see the problems, use your voice, and put some time into it to try and help. If you show that you're legitimately trying to make everybody win, people will gravitate towards you, people will listen to what you have to say, and you'll find overall it is much more successful. I'm going to talk about one more big loss, and then we'll head onto a new piece and talk more about the management framework. But one of the big fails I saw, and this was all about thinking, go fast, go fast, go fast, and people not taking the time to follow the proper steps and proper process. One of the programs I was on, there was a team that released code into production without permission, without the proper approvals, and without even communicating those changes to be done to all the stakeholders. And subsequently, there was an 8-figure loss made to that team because of that mistake. And it's something that was completely out of the hands of all the people that would have made those decisions or looked at the data or done their approvals. And just going fast for the sake of fast can have huge consequences. I'm going to wrap up this thought with a little Too Fast and Too Furious. Dom Toretto, I live my life a quarter mile at a time. And if you think about that, oh, well, he wants to go fast. It's all about going fast. Well, think about how much time Dom Toretto must have spent in the shop fine-tuning his automobile, making sure that it was at peak performance, putting in the proper infrastructure so that he could go fast. We'll just leave it on there and shout out to the Fast and the Furious. As we move on, I want to talk about what's a management defect. As I've been stating online before, it's a preventable flaw in the management of projects and teams. And what I put together with a lot of feedback from all of you. So I just want to really say a heartfelt thank you for all of that. Is taking you through these 9 steps applies all of the wins and all the toolkit that myself and a number of people have put together that have successfully delivered projects and programs, especially coming in. A lot of times I'm brought in for the rescue. You come in, there's no processes, or there isn't team cohesion, or there isn't clarity on how to deliver, or there isn't one voice telling one story for the team. And by applying these, you're able to strategize, come up with the proper approach, be able to measure what the success of what you're delivering, optimizing it, so making sure that the team is communicating properly, centralizing the information so that you have the visibility so that you can inspect your process, digitize as much as possible, design proper reporting so that you can identify the gaps, collect the data, get leadership buy-in so that you can streamline the processes, you can fix broken processes, and then move everything onto autopilot. I like to joke that my superpower is to make things boring. And while it's, gets everybody a good laugh, what that really means is I like to operate best by trying to make all the noise go away, which means expecting what we can do, getting all of the non-critical, avoidable work, all that noise down to zero so you can focus just on the fires. And that's exactly what the management defect framework can do. And we are recruiting for our pilot. It's a limited seat engagement. It's going to be 12 weeks where we'll teach you the framework, we'll teach you how to apply it against 9 different challenges that you can work with the community from around the world of project professionals and management professionals to swarm projects and problems you're having with your teams, and to directly work on solving those and putting the systems in place so that they can get on autopilot and so that they can be boring for you. As we wrap up, I just wanted to say thank you again to everybody. As you can see online, I made it LinkedIn official. That was a huge nerve-wracking step for me because all the impact that I've received from everybody has been so positive. All the feedback has been amazing, and every little discussion that I've had, every little problem that people have faced has helped me tweak this inch by inch to develop the framework and to help coach the teams. And I'm really excited to see how this group training evolves and how the coaches and I that you'll be working with, if you decide to join us, will help save your team 6, 7, 8 figures by just getting more from the team you have and spend less time doing it. Thanks again, everybody.